Hello everyone, Razorblade Mango here, and today I want to talk about The Last of Us Part 1, which is the latest game from PlayStation, developed by Naughty Dog. A very contentious release for PlayStation, and definitely, in my opinion, one of the more questionable releases from them this generation. So, before I begin, full disclosure, I did not spend $70 on this game. I managed to get this game for $25 from a mutual friend of mine who works at PlayStation. He's the same guy who got me the codes for Spider-Man Miles Morales, for Sackboy, for Returnal, for Ratchet and Clank. This is not the first time I've done this before, where I've gotten a game for cheap from them. So I want to have that there, out in the open, full disclosure, before I talk about this game. So, this video is not going to be talking about The Last of Us Part 1 as a game specifically, because I feel like that's redundant at this point. I think most people who are going to watch this, a vast majority of people, have already made up their mind about whether or not they're going to spend the money on this game. And I think a lot of them already made up their mind before the game even came out. And whether or not that was solidified or whether or not their mind was changed, I feel like that's a small percentage compared to the people who have already made up their mind. And it brings into question this new focus of discussion that we have about what is worthy of $70. And in my opinion, and I can only give my thoughts on it, and I've made this clear in the past multiple times about multiple different games, is that I do not mind paying $70 for a game if it is... I have my own set of standards as to what I would pay $70 for. And that's where The Last of Us Part 1 kind of challenges that. Where normally the games that I'm willing to spend $70 on are if they are high quality games, have a lot of production value behind them, and they don't attempt to gouge my wallet with microtransactions. If those bits of criteria are met, then I don't mind paying $70. I paid multiple times. I've paid more than $70 for Persona and Persona 5 and then Persona 5 Royal. I paid $90 for both games at the time for the collector's editions, and I don't regret it whatsoever. I would have gladly paid $70 for something like The Witcher 3. I would have gladly paid $70 for Titanfall 2 or Kingdom Hearts 3 or Bloodborne, any of those games. But the strange thing is that Part 1 falls under that criteria. And yet, I still have mixed feelings about paying that price for it. And I've been thinking about this for a while, even before it was officially announced. Because if you pay attention to the online leaks, stuff like that, like I do on occasion, this game has been in the ether for a long time, probably about over a good solid year before it was actually announced, officially back in June of this year. Because when it was announced, I just thought, oh, okay, whatever. At least they're finally officially acknowledging it, even though we've had leaks about it for a while. And funnily enough, PlayStation leaked it mere hours before it was even announced. You know, it's not a Naughty Dog game if it doesn't get leaked out at some point. They have the worst fucking security over there. Out of all the PlayStation studios, they have the worst security. So I was talking to Dog a few days ago, my friend Doggy Bone Gaming, and I mentioned to him that I was playing through the game, and I was enjoying it, which I do enjoy The Last of Us, and I'll get more into that in a sec. Is that he asked me though if it was worth $70, and my answer to him was, well, it's complicated, and I think a lot of that is based entirely around how you yourself feel about the original Last of Us. And I also think, what does The Last of Us mean to you? because The Last of Us, for me personally, is not a game that I have like the highest of reverence for. It's a game I really enjoy, but I've had a weird up and down history with it over the 9 years that it's been out. Like, for example, when it first came out, I thought it was just good, but I didn't understand the 10 out of 10s of the masterpiece status that it was getting at the time. And then when I played it a year or so later again with the remastered version, when I finally got around to that, I liked it more. And then I played it again another few years later, and I thought it was really great. And then I played it again about maybe 2 years ago on when the PS5 came out, because they bundled it with the PS Plus collection that's on there. And I played it again, and I thought, oh boy, this is rough, because I played it on the hard mode, and I noticed just how like bad the AI was in a lot of places, and how weird I thought the gameplay felt, and how dated some of the facial animation looked in it, especially when you compare it to later Naughty Dog releases like Uncharted 4, Lost Legacy, Last of Us Part 2. It just looks like it's still good for the time, but it just, some of it just a little dead-eyed and not really holds up all that well to some scrutiny. But Last of Us is not a game, and even though I do like this, I do really like this remake, and I put that in quotes, remake of it, I still find myself thinking I would not pay $70 for this, because I still think The Last of Us is a very good game, but not great. And I know this is going to be a very, very hot take, but until I replay Part 2 again, I still think Part 2 is the better game between the two. Sorry, that's just how I feel. I love Last of Us Part 2. I have a sneaking suspicion that I won't like it as much on the second playthrough as I did the first time, but that remains to be seen, because I don't know if I want to go through Part 2 again with how emotionally drained I felt from it the first time. But Part 1, it's Skill Up, the reviewer on YouTube, he made this really good point about how he's bought RoboCop multiple times over the years, the 1980s classic movie, because he absolutely loves it. And he made the comparison of like, look, I have spent far more for far less on something like RoboCop, because RoboCop means a lot to me. But for me personally, and I'm speaking now back on to me, I personally would not spend $30 on RoboCop. I like the movie. I find it fun, but I wouldn't spend $30 on it. That doesn't mean it's not valuable in that way, that like to other people. There are two comparisons that I want to bring up. Is that one PlayStation 1 and one like non-PlayStation example, is that I definitely was fine paying $70 for something like Demon's Souls Remake, because I think Demon's Souls isn't a game, even then, it's not a game that I love, but it's a game that I wanted to replay in a more modern format, where it retains the same level-to-level design, it retains the same level of difficulty. It's just, the graphics need to be improved, the frame rate definitely needs to be improved, some of the gameplay tweaks need to be there, quality of life features. And that's what Demon's Souls Remake is, and I really liked it, despite my issues with some of the changes that Bluepoint brought. And I was fine paying I would have been fine paying the $70 for it. And that's another one. I didn't pay $70 for it because my buddy Gabe bought it for me as a gift. But that is one that I'm like, okay, I would pay $70 for that. And then the non-PlayStation example is if Square Enix were to announce a remake of, and I've been on a Kingdom Hearts binge recently, if Square Enix announced a remake of Kingdom Hearts 2, my all-time favorite game, where everything was exactly the same, where they didn't add any new content, they keep everything, they keep all of the Data Organization 13 battles, they keep all the story beats exactly the same, they even keep in the atrocious Atlantica level. But the only difference is that all the assets were remade in Unreal Engine 5 and it looks more like how Kingdom Hearts 3 looks. I would buy it in a fucking heartbeat. You guys have no idea how fast I would purchase that. And yet, that is a game that has been released multiple times, like The Last of Us, and it would just be like a graphics upgrade, but all the content is pretty much exactly the same. But and the difference between the two is that Kingdom Hearts 2 means a hell of a lot more to me personally than The Last of Us. And that is a game, Kingdom Hearts 2. Keep in mind, like, I play this game once a year. Like, I love Kingdom Hearts 2 to death. Warts and all with the Lanica bullshit. That's a big fucking war on it. But I love Kingdom Hearts 2 in a way that maybe somebody loves The Last of Us Part 1. And they're willing to spend the $70 on it. So I have mixed feelings about it because while I don't think it is worthy of $70 in my opinion, there's also like these little like side paths that you could take. It like, well, if you play The Last of Us and you love it to death, like I love Kingdom Hearts 2, then I would recommend it. If you've played The Last of Us and find it wanting, then I don't recommend this remake because really not a whole lot fundamentally has changed as far as gameplay, level design. If you don't like The Last of Us, you definitely don't want it. If you've never played The Last of Us, then I would recommend this at $70 because it's definitely the best way to play it. But I think what bothers me the most about The Last of Us Part 1 remake, whatever, I find it personally annoying that they're adding a Part 1 to it because I just like The Last of Us. It's very simple. And then they're retconning it by adding Part 1 to it. I find that annoying as well, personally. It's a pet peeve, but whatever. And I think the reason I find it so questionable and so iffy is because I think Last of Us Part 1 remake pretty much summarizes modern PlayStation, where it feels like they are trying to squeeze all of the water out of the stone. And that's how I felt about a lot of the PlayStation properties nowadays, where PlayStation's formula seems to be they're going to hit on something, when they hit on something special, they're going to milk it for everything that it's worth. And I think they don't really know now how to move on and leave certain franchises alone. Because at this point, I feel like The Last of Us is just played out completely. I'm personally, like, while I do, and this is the weird thing, like, I love The Last of Us Part 2. I will defend it to my grave. I really like Last of Us. I'm a fan of the franchise. And yet I am sick to death of hearing about The Last of Us. And I think this remake would be easier. It would be an easier pill to swallow if we didn't just have Part 2, if we didn't just have the whole like, oh, we're going to do an HBO Max TV show about it. And I'm just tired of hearing about The Last of Us. And again, summarizes modern PlayStation, where they just feel like instead of letting things go and building new franchises, they're just like, oh my god, let's bring up all this old shit. Let's bring up Horizon. We're going to do a Horizon sequel. We got a Horizon VR game. We got a Horizon TV show from Netflix, which will probably be terrible. And then there's God of War. We got, the sequel coming out, and we're probably going to do more after that because it's a big cash cow for us. We got a God of War Amazon TV show in the works, which will probably be terrible. And and then we got Uncharted, where they can't leave that alone in the past. It's like, look, just 4 was great, Lost Legacy good, just leave it alone. And now they're like, oh, we have this brand new multi-million-dollar franchise with Uncharted with this shit movie. And yes, I've seen it, and it sucks. And we were going to make sequels out of it because Tom Holland is big, and it just... You get my point. It's Last of Us Part 1, it just feels like the summation of the more corporate-focused PlayStation. The corporate-focused PlayStation headed by Jimmy Boy that just wants to turn it into this product factory rather than just this team of artists. And it just... Something about it just doesn't feel quite right. And yet it's the same game. It's the same game that I liked back in 2013. Even if I don't agree with its masterpiece status, I never ever agreed with its masterpiece status. But you guys get my point. Is that it's just Part 1. When I look at it, I just get the stink of modern PlayStation. Where instead of taking those resources and taking that manpower and that time and putting that on a smaller project that could have been really good, like a smaller $40 experience, maybe they had to put it into this really safe bet where it's, oh, let's remake The Last of Us, one of our most popular, biggest, highest selling games ever, and then let's just make people pay $70 for it. And then cut out the multiplayer mode, and we'll bundle in Left Behind, even though Left Behind was part of Remastered, and then you can still play Remastered. And I think, too, that's what bothers me. It's like, look, you can still play The Last of Us on PS5 without this remake. It still works. Like, it's not, like, the greatest game in the world, in my opinion, but it works. And that's why I find, like, Demon's Souls remake much more, like, easier to enjoy, is because that game needed a remake. Did The Last of Us really need a remake? I don't think so. I think maybe in like 2 generations, I think maybe a remake would have been due. But now, where we've had The Last of Us like once a generation now, like we've had The Last of Us in the PS3 at the end. We had The Last of Us twice in the PS4 generation. Now we have Naughty Dog again beginning the PS5 generation with The Last of Us. And oh my god, I totally forgot. Now, and then also we got The Last of Us Factions mode that's going to come out maybe next year, maybe 2024. I have no idea when that's coming out, but we got more Last of Us on the way. Are you already sick of it from the TV show? Well, guess what, bitch boy? We got a standalone multiplayer game that's coming out. Because it's Last of Us. You like Last of Us, right? It's Last of Us. You'll pay for it. So, I think, too, with Naughty Dog, for me personally, I'm much more interested in this, like, new IP that they have apparently got in the works, because it's like, fuck, finally, something new. Something that isn't Uncharted. Something that isn't The Last of Us. Like, fuck. Like, I'm not, like, an enormous Jak and Daxter fan, but fuck, like, bring that back. I think you could do that justice now. You have good writers over at Naughty Dog. You can do that. Like, you're fine bringing out Ratchet and Clank again. Like, I don't understand why, like, you can't just give Jak and Daxter or Sly Cooper to some other teams and just, come on, like, fuck. And I know that kind of defeats the point of, like, oh, we'll leave stuff in the past. The difference between Jak and Daxter and then Uncharted and Last of Us is that Jak and Daxter have been gone for a long time. You know, I've had time to miss them. I haven't had a moment to even, like, breathe a single thought of, like, missing The Last of Us before PlayStation's, like, spamming more into my eyeballs. So, I just think, part 1, it summarizes everything I don't like about modern PlayStation, and to me, it just feels like such a... while it is very good, I do like it a lot, but everything I like about Last of Us is still here, and it's better. The graphics are amazing. The facial animation, Naughty Dog continues to be the, no pun intended, the top dog as far as facial animation in this industry. It looks just so lifelike, and for a game that requires the usage of very subtle facial tics and eye movement, this is where Remake excels in making this game better, is that it really sells you more on the emotions of these characters, the unspoken thoughts and feelings. And that's great. Like, that's stuff I love. I love all the fights with the human characters. It's just all, like, the really tense, edge of your seat shootouts you can get into with them. It's so good. I love it. I love the acting. I love the writing. I love the art design. I love the music. All of that is still here and great. But everything I don't like about The Last of Us is still here, and it's maybe a little bit better in some areas, like the gunplay and some of the quality of life features. I just feel like it's a missed opportunity. Even for a game that is very good. I just think they could have taken that time and that money and that manpower and just no one is putting a gun to Sony's head and telling them they have to release every single game at $70. I just don't understand why this was not one of the $50, $60 games that could have come out. If this had come out at $50, I'd been like, no problem. No problem. I highly recommend it. But 70? It's like when we're going through like really brutal financial times right now. Like, really? And again, it just speaks to Sony's like the modern PlayStation, where it's just the total lack of ability to read the room correctly and to maybe do something that doesn't just fit their penny pinching, bean counting mindset that they have now. And I just, man, and it's strange, like, be so down on something that I do really genuinely like. I like a lot. I like The Last of Us Remake far more than some of the games I've played this year that were like cheaper. But I think The Last of Us Part 1, it's just, this is why I have such an iffy feeling about it, despite it being very good. And this video is just more of an opportunity to kind of walk through my feelings of it with you guys. And I guess at the end of the day, it's just totally up to you what justifies $70. And for me, while The Last of Us, in my like objective criteria in my head, it does fall under that, yes, it's worthy of $70. I think it plays now into this wider conversation about when is it the right time to remake a game that still is readily available and still holds up. You know, you know? So it's going to be the same feelings that I have about Resident Evil 4 Remake when that comes out. But then again, that's going to be like a totally different thing compared to the original. And the original is still available to play. So even there, it differs from Remake, Last of Us. Because Last of Us is like completely the same as far as like beat for beat. And I wouldn't want them to change it. I just wouldn't want them to make this for another like generation or so. Like, that's fine if you have an idea to remake The Last of Us, great. Give it some more time. Wait until people really started to notice like how outdated some of the gameplay is, or some of the graphics are from the original. Then remake it. But now, too early, too soon. Not in this climate. Not when we have not under this PlayStation. So, anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, subscribe. Let me know what you think about The Last of Us Part 1. And as always, I'm Razorblade Mango. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all later. Bye.